Hello, I'm going to be talking about everything I wish I knew before deciding to study abroad in Korea in this video. I'm actually planning on making this into a two-part series, and in this video I'll be talking about everything I wish I knew before actually deciding to study abroad in Korea, and then in the next video I'm going to be talking about everything I wish I knew before actually studying abroad in Korea. So hopefully this video will help you decide whether or not you actually want to study abroad in Korea. And if you decide that you do, I really recommend that you visit the second video so that you can learn all of the tips and tricks that I wish I knew before I actually studied abroad here in Korea. For context, if you're new to my channel, I studied abroad at Yonsei University in Korea during the pandemic. I was here for the fall 2021 semester. As you can tell, I lived off campus, so I can also give you some insight and tips on that. But yeah, so I really wanted to make this video because I personally did not know what I was getting myself into. I believe that I'm the best person to come to when it comes to this topic because number one, I'm fluent in Korean, and number two, I have relatives here in Korea who helped me a lot of the time that I was here. So because I was fluent in Korean, I was able to do extra research and look into more processes, communicate with government workers, school officials, and anyone that I really needed to talk to while I was here. So I could get the insider, Korean person perspective as to how life here is, even though I do have a foreign nationality. So I got the best of both worlds where I got the foreigner experience because I needed to go through all of the legal difficulties, challenges that most foreigners would have to go through when they first moved to Korea, while also getting the insider's perspective because I could just communicate in Korean with them and also have my relatives talk to them if necessary because they knew what to expect when it came to these processes. So now that we've gone through all of my qualifications and my experience while I was here, I'm going to make a brief disclaimer that this video will be solely focused on academics, and this would be more specific to Yonsei and school life here at Yonsei University. I really do believe that my experience can be representative of other Korean universities just because there is a cultural and societal expectation of how academics are here. I've talked to my cousins who also attend college here, and I've pretty much heard that my experience wasn't unique. After watching this video, if you think all of the challenges and sacrifices that I've mentioned are worth it, which I personally believe they are because I had an absolutely amazing time while I was here in Korea, then I really think that you'd be the perfect candidate for studying abroad in Korea. But on the other hand, if you decide that some of the sacrifices that you would have to make because you're studying abroad here are not worth it, then I really do think you should rethink your decision. Last disclaimer, I studied abroad in Korea during the pandemic, so my experiences are representative of what you might have if COVID is present. Hopefully there will come a time where this video is completely irrelevant and maybe people will look back on it being like, how did people go to school during the pandemic? But if COVID is still a thing for you, then I believe that my experiences are pretty representative of what you're going to have. So let's get started. Okay, so if there's one thing that I really want you to take away from this video, and the one thing that might have made me choose against coming to Korea for study abroad, is that Korean professors, or in general in Korean society, if Koreans are watching this, please correct me if I'm wrong, they don't give you your grades throughout the semester, so you really don't know where you stand during your semester. A common trend that I saw among all of the study abroad students, because I was in like a 600-person Discord and Kakao chat, was that a lot of people, the majority of people, were really frustrated with how little they knew about their grades for their classes. And this seems to be a really common trend here in Korea after talking to my cousins. So pretty much professors may grade your work, but they won't give you back your scores. Again, this isn't representative of all professors. I did have one class where the professor did give us our midterm grades. Yeah, I think all of my professors gave back our midterm scores. But for assignments like homework assignments and also knowing your participation grade, your attendance grade, your quiz grades, I don't think trying to think. Most of my professors did not give those grades out throughout the semester, so I actually had no idea where I was the entire semester. I personally thought that I was doing great and that I would be getting straight A's this semester, and then pop, final grades are released, and I got a B plus in one of my classes that I for sure thought I would get an A. And the thing that sucks about this is that you can't really protest to your professor or you can't correct them if there was a miscalculation because you really don't know what they based your grade off of. When I was going to school in the States, I could pretty much calculate my final grade based off of all of the scores that I had and like double check that my letter grade was what it was. But this isn't possible here because the professors won't release your grades. There was another class that I received an A minus in. What I'm assuming brought my grade down was my attendance or my participation because I did pretty well on the midterm and the final. But again, professors aren't very clear with what the grade cutoffs are. I don't think any of my professors actually released grade cutoffs in their syllabi. Long story short, your GPA might break because you were studying abroad in Korea. If you're expecting to get a really easy semester because you're in a different country and professors are like, oh, go explore the world and everything, that might not be the case here in Korea. Second point, adding on to this, there's something called 상대평가 here in Korea, which is pretty much grading off of a curve, but in a bad way. So what I mean by this is that professors sometimes are given a limit as to how many A's they can give. Even if the school doesn't implement this on the professors, some professors do it on their own. And so pretty much what this means is that even if you get like a 94, you could be getting a B. And again, based off of point one, you might not even know why you got a B because professors aren't clear with what they graded, what you got, and how you got the grade. Because I am currently debating to be a pre-med student, breaking my GPA just because I wanted to study abroad might not have been the best idea. But I personally don't regret coming to Korea and breaking my GPA because I got unforgettable experiences and memories while I was here. Another thing that is something that you might not have expected is that professors are pretty strict with attendance, even if you're studying abroad. All of my classes required attendance, so if you want to go to a country where you can pretty much have a really flexible schedule and go wherever you want, whenever you want, you really don't have that freedom here in Korea. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind before making your decision to come to Korea. Everything that I'm going to be talking about from now on is more specific to Yonsei and the things that I heard from my fellow classmates. I just thought that they would be really helpful for people if they are deciding to come to Korea. If you're planning on taking Korean classes, you might want to look up student reviews and student testimonials about how Korean classes are conducted. At Yonsei in particular, I saw that a lot of people were complaining about how grammar heavy it was, and they didn't really focus that much on conversational Korean. You might definitely want to choose which university to attend while you're studying abroad here in Korea based off of how they teach that language. Adding on to that, this may be because this is more specific to being a COVID semester. Classes barely have any support outside of the classroom. Most of my classes did not have TAs. A lot of the students in the 600 people group chat that I keep on mentioning were complaining about how professors barely had office hours. There were no tutors, no one-on-one support, nothing to really rely on. This was the prime complaint for most of the people because they really wanted language partners to practice their Korean. That program was canceled completely for us because of COVID, which honestly I don't think is that necessary since people could have done it online. Okay, the next point is something that I know for sure everybody was complaining about regardless of being at Yonsei, because I did meet some students who went to Korea University and Seoul National University, but pretty much you barely have any chance of meeting Korean students. Based on my experience, Yonsei has classes that are taught in Korean, taught in English and are taught in English specifically for exchange students. So I took classes for all three of them, and the only class that I actually got to interact and talk to Korean students were in the Korean classes. And you need to be fluent for these classes, or you need to be at least conversationally very advanced to take these courses. One of the most common complaints I saw in the group chat was that people did not have the opportunity to interact, communicate, and meet Korean students. And this is going to actually lead into my next point, which is that clubs were inactive this semester for Yonsei University, and I'm pretty sure it was like that for other universities. Based off of my research and my Korean fluency, I know for sure that clubs did do recruitment for this semester. But the thing is that the exchange students were not informed of these opportunities. Again, this might be because of the school trying to adjust to COVID procedures and COVID, I guess. But regardless, it sucked that foreign exchange students were not informed of even the opportunity to apply to these clubs. And again, this further limited us from actually meeting and interacting with Korean students. A common trend that I saw this entire semester was that foreign exchange students only hung out with foreign exchange students unless they met Koreans at the bars or at clubs. So if interacting with other Korean students and living that Korean campus life is important to you, then you might want to wait until COVID is over. So my final point actually relates to the previous point in that foreign exchange students were kind of dropped by the school administration this semester. The biggest thing that kind of irked me personally was that Yonsei students, foreign exchange students, were not even informed of potential platforms that would encourage socialization and meeting others, or even being a resource in general. Students here in Korea use a phone app called Everytime. Pretty much this is your go-to app for anything that's campus related. So my equivalent of this here in the States is a Facebook page or a Facebook group for everybody that attends my school. But pretty much this is an app here in Korea, and people will make posts being like, oh my gosh, did you guys see the Christmas tree today? To like, oh my gosh, this professor is so hard. Does anybody have any tips? Hi, I'm looking for a lunch buddy. Hi, I'm selling this. I'm subletting. All of this is actually done on this app called Everytime, and the thing is you need to be authorized as a student of that university in order to access the app at all. I tried 4 or 5 times to be authorized onto the app, and it didn't work for me. One of the ways that you could authorize yourself as a student was logging onto the school portal, but pretty much I got an error message that said, oh, you're not a regular student, you're a short-term student, and you are not allowed based off of that kind of a registration. I'm pretty sure 99.9% of the population that studied abroad this fall semester did not even know that this app existed because pretty much we weren't informed of it. And I think this is a really common trend this past semester. Foreign exchange students were given no support, no information, no resources, nothing. So that concludes my video about everything I wish I knew about studying abroad here in Korea before actually deciding to come here. Again, I will be making another video about everything that I wish I knew, tips and tricks about actually studying abroad here in Korea, because this video would be way too long. If you're looking for information about campus life, off-campus housing, anything, then I really recommend that you look at the part 2 of this video series. I really hope that this video was helpful, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I do have a lot more information because I can speak Korean. On another note, I'll be adding some resources to the information section of this video, one of them being a master guide created by Fall 2021 exchange students that will be super helpful if you're planning to study abroad here in Korea. I also was contacted by a fellow fall 2021 exchange student who's planning on interviewing some of the students who studied abroad here. So I'll be adding that as soon as it's published. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you so much for watching!